The distress beacon from Station HFY-9 had been silent for 237 years. When it suddenly reactivated broadcasting on a frequency that shouldn't have been possible, using encryption protocols that had been deleted from every council database, the Galactic Council made a decision. They would send a cleanup crew. Not investigators. Not scientists. Not soldiers. A cleanup crew. And they would send a human to do the dirty work. Marcus Cole noticed the blood first. Old blood, weeks old, baked brown at the edges and tracked in boot prints that led deeper into the darkness. The prints weren't bipedal. Whatever made them had been walking on 4 legs or 6. He tightened his grip on the mop handle and said nothing, because 47 years of living had taught him that the time to speak was after you understood what you were looking at. The station doors had opened onto white marble corridors. Council stations were always white, clinical, sterile, designed to make contamination visible. The blood stood out like a brand. Behind him, Supervisor Dren Kalental, blue-skinned Taurian, evolved at 0.4G, cleared his throat with the particular discomfort of someone who just realized his pragmatic asset might have been right to bring a sidearm. Mr. Cole, your assignment is simple. Sanitation of the docking ring. Standard protocols. Do not deviate. Marcus didn't answer immediately. He was studying the boot prints. Council-issue treads. The original crew had worn them, but something else had walked through their blood afterward, dragging claws across the floor in grooves deep enough to catch his thumbnail. Copy that, Marcus said. The briefing had been clear 3 days ago, when the Galactic Council Procurement Board approved the mission parameters. 1 supervisor, 1 medical officer, 1 technical specialist, 1 heavy equipment operator, and 1 maintenance worker. The maintenance worker was human. This was not an accident. Humans are biologically crude, Supervisor Dren Kalen had explained to the board, his long Taurian fingers laced on the conference table. Their immune systems are aggressive. They evolved on a Class 9 death world where survival required adaptation to extreme pathogens, predators, and environmental hostility. If the contaminated environment kills the human, we lose a replaceable contractor. If it doesn't, we have a worker who can function in zones where hazmat integration would be prohibitively expensive. The board approved unanimously. No one asked Marcus Cole what he thought. Marcus hadn't minded. Former Army Corps of Engineers, 22 years of service, honorable discharge after a knee injury that ended his career but not his work ethic. 6 years mopping floors on council vessels. 6 years being invisible. He preferred it that way. Floors didn't judge. Space was quiet. The SIG Sauer M17 in his shoulder holster, legal, registered, technically permitted because the council figured humans liked shooting things, was his insurance policy for when quiet ended. The transport shuttle touched down on HFY-9's docking ring with a shudder. Station gravity, 0.6 G. Comfortable for the Taurians, Ketheri, Keelians, and Pelkians on the crew. For Marcus, it felt like walking on the moonlight, easy, his earthborn bones carrying strength the environment didn't know how to contain. Dr. Leah Tormin, the Celian medical officer, uploaded atmospheric data to his suit display. Pale skin, silver eyes, 2 meters tall and bird-like Keelians evolved on a 0.3 G moon with thin atmosphere. Fragile, brilliant, and deeply curious about the human on her crew. The air is breathable but compromised, she said, clinical and precise. Trace biological compounds of unknown origin. I'll monitor your vitals throughout. Appreciate it, document. Dr. Tormin. Marcus nodded. Respect cost nothing. Vex Soren, the Ketheri technical specialist, scuttled ahead on 4 articulated legs, her compound eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. Ketheri were short, fast, and telepathic limited range, but enough to sense neural patterns and interface with systems most species couldn't comprehend. She carried her tool harness like a soldier carried ammunition. Gorath Pym, the Pelkian heavy operator, brought up the rear. For arms, stocky frame, evolved at 0.6 G. Strong by alien standards. He hadn't spoken to Marcus once during the 3-day journey. Marcus was used to that. The docking ring stretched ahead, white floors, white walls, red emergency lighting casting everything in the color of old wounds. Marcus knelt beside the first smear of blood. Beneath it was something viscous, gelatinous, marked with grooves like claw drags. He bagged a sample, clipped it to his belt, and began to mop. Solvents first, absorption second, sealant third. Work from the edges inward. Change mop heads between zones. Log every meter. He was 40 minutes in when the lights went out. Not all of them, the emergency strips stayed on, red and low. But the change came with a vibration through the floor. Rhythmic. Heavy. Something large was moving through the lower levels. His radio crackled. Vex Soren's voice, clipped and fast. Supervisor, the station's core systems are not responding. Someone or something has restructured the access protocols. I'm locked out of primary power, life support, and communications. The restructuring is deliberate, not random, intelligent. Silence on the channel. Then Dr. Tormin, quiet and controlled. I'm reading a biological signature in the lower levels. Large, mobile, moving upward. Marcus set the mop against the wall. He unzipped his Caterpillar maintenance bag, pulled out the General Dynamics multi-tool, and clipped it to his belt. Then he drew the Sig Sauer M17. 15 rounds in the magazine. 1 in the chamber. He thumbed the safety off. The radio crackled again. Pim's voice, tight. Something tore through the bulkhead on deck 3. Not cut. Torn. The metals peeled back like foil. Dren. All personnel. Converge on the docking ring. We're aborting dash. Static. Marcus was already running. In 0.6 G, his stride covered ground fast 2 meters per step. His muscles firing with restrained power that made the low gravity feel optional. He reached the central hub in under a minute. Vex Soren was on the floor. Marcus crossed to her in 3 strides. She was conscious but curled tight, her 4 legs tucked against her body. A gash along her thorax bled pale amber fluid. Her compound eyes flickered Ketheri distress response. What happened? Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly. Something came through the vent. Fast. It hit me once and withdrew. Like it was testing me. Learning. Learning what? How I move. How I react. Her eyes locked on him. It was smart, Marcus. Tactical. Dr. Tormin knelt beside them, scanner in hand. Neurotoxin in the wound. Minor dose. Vex system is processing it, but if this had hit a Celian or Taurian, it would have been fatal within minutes. Marcus looked toward deck 3. The bulkhead was visible metal peeled outward in smooth, deliberate strips. Not torn. Controlled. Whatever did this understood force and application. Dren, Marcus said. The Taurian supervisor turned, his blue skin almost purple in the red light. The mask of control on his face was cracking. Communications are down. The station is blocking all outbound signals. Actively. Someone reprogrammed it, Marcus said. Yes. And that someone isn't using a console. They're interfacing biologically. He paused. This wasn't a plague station. It was weapons research. And whatever they were researching is still here. The silence had weight. Dr. Tormin raised her scanner. He's right. I'm detecting multiple biological signatures. Networked. Their neuroelectrical patterns are synchronized. A hive intelligence. At least 7 distinct signatures, but the sensors are compromised. There could be more. From the deck 3 corridor, Pim's voice rumbled. Something's moving down there. Marcus listened. Below the hum of emergency power, there was clicking. Rhythmic, deliberate, like Morse code, like language. Vex, can you walk? The Ketheri tested her legs. Yes, coordination is affected, but I can move. Good. You're with me. Marcus looked at Dren. Barricade the hub. If anything comes through that corridor, Fall back to the docking ring and seal the airlock. Dren's expression shifted. Mr. Cole, you are a maintenance worker. You are not authorized to dash. Marcus met his eyes. You brought me here because humans are hard to kill. Because we evolved on a world that tried to murder us every single day. You didn't bring me to mop floors. You brought me in case the floors fought back. So either let me do what you hired me to do, or give me a direct order to stand down and watch your crew die. 3 seconds of silence. Then Dren stepped aside. Marcus moved to the Deck 3 corridor. The clicking grew louder. He pulled a chemical flare from his bag caterpillar industrial grade and cracked it. Green-white light flooded the passage, revealing walls scored with hundreds of parallel claw marks. Some old, some fresh. The walls looked like something had been trying to escape for a very long time. Vex moved beside him, limping but steady. I can see in infrared, and I can interface with systems. We're better together. Marcus nodded and stepped through the torn bulkhead. Deck 3 was research level. Narrow corridors lined with sealed lab doors. The claw marks were denser here, overlapping, and the walls were streaked with dark resin applied in patterns not random. Deliberate. Vex stopped at one section where the resin formed concentric circles. That's the station layout. These are territorial markers. This species has divided the station into hunting zones. How long has the station been abandoned? 237 years. 2 centuries of breeding, adapting, learning the systems. The council had known. That's why there was no investigation. No recovery. Just sterilization orders and a human janitor. The clicking stopped. Marcus felt the silence like a weight. He raised the Sig Sauer. Vex's eyes flickered rapidly, scanning in infrared. Above us, she whispered. Marcus looked up. The creature clung to the ceiling like a gecko 2 meters long. Bipedal when upright, segmented exoskeleton gleaming wetly. Its head was elongated, eyeless, dominated by a jaw that split into 4 mandible sections lined with serrated edges. It made a low, subsonic hum that Marcus felt in his chest. It's scanning us, Vex said. Echolocation and neuroelectric. Reading our neural patterns dash. The creature dropped. Marcus fired twice center mass, controlled pairs. The 9mm rounds punched into the exoskeleton with sounds like a hammer on wet ceramic. The rounds penetrated, but the creature kept coming. It landed between them, mandibles snapping wide. Marcus didn't dodge. He stepped into the lunge, raising his left forearm as a guard. The mandibles clamped down 4 puncture wounds through fabric and skin, but his bones held. The creature's head was inches from his face. He could smell it. Ozone, ammonia, rotting meat. He put the Sig Sauer's muzzle against the mandible joint and fired 3 times. The rounds punched through soft tissue into the cranial cavity. The creature convulsed. Marcus ripped his arm free and put 2 more rounds into its thorax. It stopped moving. Vex was against the wall, eyes flickering. You let it bite you. Better my forearm than your thorax. Marcus reloaded, tearing a strip from his sleeve to wrap the puncture wounds. Blood welled but didn't spray. Not arterial. Painful but functional. How many rounds to drop one of these? 6, apparently. Marcus examined the corpse. Along its spine, visible through semi-transparent plating, was a chain of bioluminescent neural nodes. Even in death, they pulsed faintly. They're networked, he said. When this one died, it sent a signal. Vex's eyes locked on the nodes. A death signal. The others know one was killed. They know what killed it, and they'll adapt. Then we don't give them time. Marcus stood. We need the armory. There's an armory? Always is on containment stations. Lowest deck. Near waste management. He looked at her. Can you crack a council lock? Vex's mandibles clicked almost a smile. I'm Kethery. I can crack anything that runs on electricity. They descended fast. Vex navigated with infrared while Marcus kept the Sig Sauer raised and the flare low. The resin patterns grew denser territorial expansion over 2 centuries, layer by layer. On Deck 4 they found the crew. Not bones. Worse, the 17 crew members had been preserved in resin incorporated into the station structure. Their faces were visible, frozen in terror, bodies contorted and merged with the walls. And in each body, the neural nodes pulsed faintly, bioluminescent and rhythmic. They integrated the crew into the network, Vex whispered. The crew's neural tissue was added to the hive intelligence. They didn't just kill them, they absorbed them. Marcus stood silent, looking at the faces. One was a Taurian woman, her fingers reaching as if for a console, for help that never came. He closed his eyes for 2 seconds. Then, keep moving. Deck 5. The armory was behind a sealed bulkhead marked with containment insignia. Vex interfaced with the lock, bypassing Council encryption in 47 seconds. Inside, Lockheed Martin M76 railgun shoulder-fired magnetic accelerator, tungsten penetrators at Mach 8. Boeing Sikorsky pulse grenades EMP and concussive shockwave. General Dynamics LP-12 laser pistol. And in a locked case at the back, a Caterpillar X7 industrial flamethrower. 15-meter range, 90 seconds of fuel. Marcus loaded up, M76 across his back. Pulse grenades on his belt. X7 in his hands. Vex watched him. What are you planning? Getting my team off this station alive. There are at least 6 more of these, with a distributed intelligence that's already adapted to your weapon. Yeah. Marcus racked the M76 charging mechanism. The sound was loud and final. But they've never fought anything that hits back the way I do. They climbed. Deck 4 the faces in the walls. Marcus didn't look. Deck 3 research level, dark and scarred. Deck 2 crew quarters. The clicking started again. Faster now. Synchronized. The creatures were communicating urgency. On Deck 2, the corridor to the hub was sealed not by systems but by resin. A wall thick and opaque, hard as steel. Marcus could hear movement on the other side. Vex closed her eyes, reaching telepathically. The team is alive, barricaded in the hub. The creatures are focused on us. Good. Marcus unslung the M76 and sighted on the resin wall. Stand back. The railgun fired with a crack. A tungsten penetrator punched through the resin and the creature waiting behind it. The creature hadn't been visible, camouflaged against the wall. The round hit center mass and exited through its back, spraying chitin and amber fluid. Marcus stepped through the hole. X7 ready. The creature was down but thrashing. He put the flamethrower's nozzle against its thorax and pulled the trigger. 3 seconds of fuel. The creature screamed, a sound part biological, part mechanical, resonating through the station. Its neural nodes burst in pops of bioluminescent light. The scream alerted the others. They came from every direction: vents, corridors, ceiling. 6 of them, converging with breathtaking speed and coordination. Not random attacks, flanking maneuvers. Using corridor geometry to approach from angles his weapons couldn't cover simultaneously. The first came from the left corridor. Marcus swung the X7 and burned it with a 4-second burst. It recoiled, screeching, chitin cracking under thermal stress, but didn't die. It retreated, and the second creature came behind it, using the first as a shield. They'd learned. Fire was painful but not immediately lethal. A burning packmate could absorb damage while a fresh attacker closed. Marcus dropped the X7 and grabbed the M76. The second creature was 3 meters out. He fired from the hip. The penetrator hit its leg, severing the limb. Spun, crashed, but kept dragging itself forward. Marcus worked the bolt and fired again. Center mass. It went still. 2 down. For left. The third dropped from the ceiling. Marcus heard the claw click a half-second early enough time to dive. In 0.6 G, His dive became a long roll that carried him 4 meters. The creature hit the floor where he'd been standing hard enough to dent the plating. Marcus came up on one knee and fired. The penetrator caught it in the thorax. His nodes flared and died. 3 down. The remaining 3 coordinated simultaneous assault from 3 directions. Left corridor, right corridor, straight ahead. Marcus couldn't cover all angles with the M76 single-shot rate. Vex threw the pulse grenades. 1 left, 1 right. Twin detonations, concussive walls of force slammed the flanking creatures into the walls. The shockwave cracked their exoskeletons along stress lines. Before they could recover, Marcus was there. He didn't use the railgun. He used his hands. He grabbed the first stunned creature by mandible and thorax and drove his knee into the cracked exoskeleton. The impact was like a sledgehammer on ceramic. The exoskeleton collapsed inward. The creature died. The second was recovering, mandibles opening. Marcus spun, still holding the first corpse, and swung it like a flail. 100 kilos of dead chitin, accelerated by human muscle in low gravity, hit the second creature with the sound of a car crash. It flew backward into the wall, exoskeleton shattering. Marcus dropped the corpse, drew the Sig Sauer, and put 4 rounds into its cranial cavity. For down. 2 left. 1 penetrator in the M76. 6 rounds in the SIG. The 5th didn't come to him. It went to Vex. Her scream was high and sharp. The creature bore her down, claws raking her harness, mandibles closing on her leg. It was dragging her toward a vent opening. Marcus ran. 3 steps. 5-meter strides in 0.6 G. The creature was at the vent, pulling Vex inside. Marcus didn't shoot too close, too tangled. He holstered the weapon. He grabbed the creature's rear limb with both hands, planted his feet, and pulled. Human pulling strength in low gravity is brutal physics. Marcus's muscles, built for 1.0 G resistance, generated force the creature's body wasn't designed to counter. It was dragged backward out of the vent like a fish on a line. It released Vex. It spun on Marcus, mandibles wide, and caught him across the chest. For gashes opened deep enough to see muscle. Pain flared white-hot and then his body muted it. Adrenaline override. The ability to feel pain and choose to ignore it. Marcus grabbed the creature's mandible with his left hand and drove his right elbow into the joint. The strike, powered by triceps and torso rotation, hit like a piston. The mandible snapped. The creature shrieked. Marcus hit it again, same elbow, same target. The head caved. Neural nodes burst in cascading light. It dropped. Marcus stood over it, breathing hard. Blood soaked his coveralls. His forearm throbbed. His chest burned. His hands shook not fear, but spent adrenaline. The tremor after the body burns through its reserves. Vex was on the floor, leg mangled but intact. She looked at Marcus with an expression no alien had ever given him before. "Oh, you pulled it off me. With your hands. Are you okay?" "My leg is crushed. I can't walk. But I'm alive." She paused. "Because of you." Marcus knelt and began binding her leg with torn coveralls. 1 creature left. The 6th. And it had been watching. He felt it before he saw it, the hair on his neck rising. A vestigial response useless in modern combat but invaluable as an early warning. The 6th creature stood at the corridor's end, upright on hind legs, mandibles closed, neural nodes pulsing slow and deliberate. "The Queen," Vex whispered. "The neural hub. With the others dead, its processing capacity is reduced. It's thinking." Marcus and the Queen regarded each other across 30 meters. The Queen's exoskeleton was darker, larger, with neural nodes running across its shoulders, limbs, mandibles. It was the server. The others had been terminals. Tilted its head. The clicking resumed slower now, modulated. Almost conversational. "It's trying to communicate," Vex said. "Offering a trade. Safe passage to the docking ring if we abandon the sterilization and leave." Marcus picked up the M76. One penetrator left. Tell it no. Vex relayed the message. The Queen's nodes flared, a pulse of bioluminescent current running its body. Its mandibles opened. Then it charged. 30 meters in under 2 seconds. Claws sparking on metal, mandibles wide. A black blur in dying flare light. Marcus didn't have time to aim. He fired from the hip. The penetrator hit the Queen's left shoulder, shearing off the limb. It spun sideways but didn't stop. It hit Marcus at full speed. The collision was catastrophic. 80 kilos at 10 meters per second. They went down together, sliding across the floor in a spray of blood and chitin. Marcus's left hand found the creature's forelimb. His right found its mandible. The mandible closed on his right shoulder. Crunch of fabric, pop of joint dislocating, wet tear of deltoid muscle. Marcus didn't scream. He changed his grip. His right hand, shoulder dislocated and bleeding, found the cranial joint. His left hand found the thorax, pushing upward for leverage. And then he did something no alien would have considered. He bit it. Human teeth, omnivorous tools designed for tearing meat and cracking bone. The Queen's cranial joint, armored against impact but not against sustained bite force at close range. Marcus bit down, jaw muscles firing at maximum, and tore. Chitin cracked. Amber fluid sprayed, copper taste. Acidic, burning his lips. The Queen shrieked and its mandible ground harder on his shoulder. Marcus felt his clavicle flex, fracture, and then his body decided pain was no longer useful. His right hand drove upward into the torn joint. Once, twice, 3 times. Human bone on alien nerve. On the 4th strike, the Queen's neural nodes exploded in blinding blue-white light. The Queen convulsed twice and went still. Its mandible loosened. Its limbs splayed. Marcus released the corpse and rolled onto his back, staring at the white ceiling. Each breath was negotiation between lungs and ribs. The clavicle fracture was stable. The shoulder dislocation painful but not lethal. The chest lacerations shallow. The forearm punctures swollen and hot infection starting, but treatable. He was alive. Vex crawled to him, dragging her legs. She looked at the corpse, then at Marcus, then back. You killed it with your teeth. Hands were busy. That is the most human thing I have ever witnessed. Marcus said nothing. He lay on the floor and breathed. With the Queen dead, the network defaulted. Vex restored communications in 10 minutes. The distress signal went out. A Council military vessel arrived in 4 hours. During those hours, Marcus dragged himself to the hub and reunited with the team. Dren Kalen stared, taking in the blood, the dislocated shoulder, the fractures and wounds. The Taurian's expressions cycled through disbelief, confusion, and finally something Marcus had never seen directed at a human. Respect. Mr. Cole, I owe you an apology. No, you don't. You made the right tactical call. I just happened to be the right tool. Dren held his gaze, then nodded slowly. The Council will want a full debrief. I'll ensure your role is accurately represented. Marcus shrugged, then winced. I'd settle for hazard pay and a new coverall. Dr. Tormin treated his injuries with clinical precision layered over barely concealed amazement. She reduced the shoulder dislocation with a decisive maneuver that made Marcus see white, sealed the lacerations, administered antibiotics. Your bone density is remarkable, she said quietly. The clavicle fracture would have shattered a celian bone into fragments. And your pain response, you don't just feel pain. You override it. She paused, silver eyes meeting his. You are not what I expected, Mr. Cole. You are the most complex organism I have ever treated. Him, the Pelkian who hadn't spoken to Marcus in 3 days, walked over and placed a canteen of water beside him. It was the first gesture of kindness. Marcus drank and nodded thanks. Pym nodded back. That was all. It was enough. The military response team swept the station. 12 soldiers, for species, fully armed. They found 6 creature corpses, resin architecture, integrated crew remains, and a contamination scenario beyond anything the Council had faced. The team commander, Colonel Saren Vey, reviewed the recovered logs. HFY 9 hadn't been plague research. It had been weapons development. The creatures harvesters were native to the planet below, studied and weaponized for their hive intelligence and neural integration capabilities. The program failed when the harvesters adapted faster than handlers could control. The Council buried the program, sealed the station, declared it quarantine. For 237 years, the harvesters bred in the dark, learning, waiting. Colonel Vey read in silence. Then she looked at Marcus, sitting against a wall with his arm in a sling, eyes half closed. You killed 6 of these. Alone. 5 and a queen. Not alone. Specialist Soren provided tactical intelligence and deployed the grenades that disabled 2. Vex looked up sharply, mandibles clicking in surprise. Marcus had shared credit he could have claimed entirely. That was not what she'd expected from humans. Colonel Vey studied him. The Council will want to debrief you personally. I'll write it up. One condition. Vey raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to set conditions. The original crew, the ones in the walls, they were Council personnel, abandoned for 237 years. Their families never got answers. The Council owes them recovery and a proper memorial. That's my condition. Silence. Vey looked at Dren, who looked at Tormin, who looked at Vex. All thinking the same thing. This man fought through a nightmare that killed an entire station, and his first demand is a memorial for people dead 2 centuries. Vey nodded slowly. I'll take it to the Council. Appreciate it, Colonel. 3 weeks later, Marcus Cole was back on a Council transport, mopping floors. Clavicle healed. Punctures closed. Shoulder stiff but functional. He'd received hazard pay triple rate, approved without argument, and a formal commendation he'd folded into his foot locker unread. The Council approved the memorial. The crew's remains were returned to their homeworlds. The station was sterilized by orbital strike, reduced to atoms. The official record stated biological contaminant neutralized. The harvesters were not mentioned. The human janitor who killed 6 of them was not mentioned. Marcus didn't mind. He hadn't done it for recognition. He was mopping the transport's mess hall when Vex found him. Walking on all 4 legs now, thorax healed, eyes bright. She waited at the edge of his work area until he noticed. Specialist Soren. Mr. Cole. I wanted to tell you something. She paused. I've served on 12 missions with 14 species. I have never witnessed courage equal to what you did. And I have never witnessed kindness equal to your condition for the Colonel. Marcus stopped mopping and looked at her. In the bright light, the Ketheri was small, fragile, a creature from a world where evolution favored mind over body. She'd been terrified. She'd been injured. And she'd stayed at his side through the entire descent, refusing to leave even when she could barely walk. You stayed with me, Marcus said. When I told you to hold position, you came anyway. That took courage too, Vex. It was logical. We were more effective together. Maybe, but you could have been logical from the hub. You chose to come. That's not logic. That's loyalty. Vex mandibles clicked a layered sequence indicating embarrassment, pride, gratitude, and something without a name in any language but that both recognized. I'll be requesting you as a team member on my next assignment, she said formally. Marcus smiled small, barely visible. The kind a man who'd spent 6 years mopping floors kept in reserve. I'll bring my mop. And your sidearm. And my sidearm. Vex walked away, legs clicking on the fresh floor. Marcus watched her go, then turned back to his work. There was a scuff mark near the entrance boot print, Pelkian, four-toed. He sprayed it with solvent, worked it with the mop, watched it fade. Through the viewport, stars moved in slow procession. Somewhere, a council database updated. Earth's classification remained. Class 9 Death World. Gravity, 1.0 G. Atmosphere hostile. Native species. Aggressive, adaptable, apex predator. Threat assessment, moderate. But in the margins annotations field officers added after encounters. Someone had written a line Marcus would never see. Human personnel demonstrate combat effectiveness in biological containment scenarios exceeding all projections. Recommend reassessment of threat classification. Recommend integration in high-risk missions. Recommend, in strongest terms, we stop assigning them to mop floors and start deploying them where they were built to operate. The note was attributed to Supervisor Dren Kalin, Torian, Mission ID 7749 Ophion. It was the first time a Torian formally recommended a human for elevation. It would not be the last. Marcus finished the floor, rinsed the mop, hung it to dry. Shift over. He walked to crew quarters, stripped off coveralls, hung them in his locker. The SIG sour went on the shelf. The General Dynamics multi-tool in the drawer. The Lockheed Martin M76, which the Council had failed to requisition, went behind the false panel, where it would stay until needed. He lay on his bunk. Thin mattress, thinner pillow. 0.8 G gravity, almost comfortable. He closed his eyes. In the dark, he saw the faces in the walls. The Torian woman reaching for help. He'd given her a memorial. A name on a plaque on a homeworld she left 237 years ago. It wasn't enough. It never was. But it was something. And somewhere in council space, in briefing rooms and procurement offices and military command centers, a conversation was beginning. A question being asked for the first time with genuine curiosity instead of contempt. What else can they do? The galaxy had sent a human janitor to clean a station. He'd cleaned it. And now the galaxy was starting to understand what that meant.